So I heard a quote a few years ago that radically changed the way I do my New Year's planning and really life year planning in general. And it was from Bill Gates. He said most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they could do in 10 years. And I found that this was true in my life as well. I was aiming way too high on my individual years. And for sure, by like February or March, I was totally discouraged because I wasn't making the progress I thought I would make. And I realized I wasn't going to hit that goal. So I tended to just give up and be like, well, shucks, maybe next year. Or I would end up setting goals that were realistic, but honestly, they just weren't compelling. They weren't interesting enough. So hearing this quote, probably 4 or 5 years ago, really changed my entire process because I realized if I took this big, compelling, ambitious goal and tried to fit it into 1 year, I probably had like a 1% chance of that actually happening. But if I could just give myself more runway, if I could give myself more time, that exact same goal spread out over a decade, there was like a 90% chance I was going to be able to get this done. And this is something I even started when I decided to start writing. We had become financially independent, and writing was one of the hobbies that I decided I wanted to try and to pick up. So instead of setting my 1-year goals, I set decade goals. And let me tell you, they were terrifying. Terrifying and honestly kind of embarrassing. I was embarrassed at how ambitious they were. I was embarrassed by how big they felt. But at the time, I had a blogging buddy named Amanda, and me and Amanda would chat once a month just about our writing goals and just kind of our bigger life goals. And I took a picture of my goals and I texted her and I was like, girl, you better not show this to anybody. Like, this is top secret. Don't leak this on the internet. Like, it belongs nowhere on the internet, because I was so scared. And I was so scared of being embarrassed that, one, that I wanted it, and two, what if I failed? And if everyone knew I wanted this big goal, then I would have to own that failure in front of everybody. So I had one trusted person I texted. And this is something that we can apply to our finances. Maybe over the next decade, you're like, I want to be able to buy a house with 20% down, or I want to be debt-free over the next decade, or save my first $500,000. That first 100,000 is a bugger. It is so hard, but then it starts to get easier. You might want to pay off your house or take a mini retirement and do some traveling. There might be some things in your life. You're like, this is the decade. I'm going to learn how to have happy, healthy relationships. Like, all of the baggage that I inherited, all of the stuff I've carried with me, we're going to go to therapy and read some books, and we're going to work this stuff out. And it's not going to go into 2030. We're going to put it to bed in this decade. Maybe it's just having more friends, or traveling, or writing a book. These are all easy things to accomplish if you give yourself enough time frame. And especially in our work and in our careers, if you want a big promotion, or you want to just start a new job, find a new career. I know a lot of us at this point, we're still feeling like, what do we want to be when we grow up? We feel like because we're 25 or 35 or 45 or 55, we should have figured it out by now. But sometimes those old dreams need refreshing, and we're ready for a change. It might be really tough to figure that out by next week, but if you put the time and intention into it over the next decade, you test and scale a bunch of stuff, you try a bunch of stuff, you experiment and have conversations, there's a 90% chance that you will land on that just right thing. I really believe that most of our dreams aren't killed because they're too ambitious. They're just killed by a short runway. Sometimes you might feel like, I just don't want to wait that long. I would love that result. I would love like that certain size of clothing or that a certain accomplishment or that certain job title. But I'm not, Jillian, I don't really want to wait for a decade for that to happen. But honestly, most successful people I know fall in love with the process. They enjoy the journey there, and then having a cool outcome is just part of the reward. But if you really don't like the process, it's going to be so difficult to get to that kind of outcome. So I just want to encourage you. Find big, compelling goals. Do things that you're so excited about and just pick 3. You don't have to do all the things. You don't have to be all the things. But what are like 3 compelling, amazing goals that you could really lean into over the next decade? And then if you're really bold and if you really want to be brave in this, take a picture of that and send it to one person. Just like that one supportive, encouraging friend who always has your back. Because just remember, we don't have to be perfect. We just have to be a little bit more courageous every day because adventure awaits.